Hello, I'm Locknoob. I'm a lockpicker and Locksport YouTuber. I'm also a lockpicking tool designer who works with companies such as Sparrow's Lockpicks, Multipick and Vent amongst others. I want to talk to you today about 10 really fun Locksport hobbies and skill sets that take Locksport beyond just lockpicking. Some of these you may have already tried, some of them you may not have even thought of, but I hope that whatever your experience, this leaves you inspired to try out a new skill or return to one you haven't tried for a while. It isn't long into a lockpicking hobby that you'll want to start making your own tools. The first thing that most people try to do is make their own tension tools. Here's some wiper blade insert material, and just with a few bends and snips with a pair of pliers, you can start to make your own bottom of the keyway and top of the keyway tension tools. And they really are that easy to make. As you can see, they come in different thicknesses and you can bend them to whatever specification you like to get tension on your locks. If you're into lever lock picking, then just grab yourself some nice steel wire, some shrink tubing, and then you can make very easily with some files and a pair of pliers, again, some nice lever wires. If you have access to a rotary multi-tool and a few more materials, you can get really creative with your designs. And quite honestly, you just don't need that much in the way of tools to allow your imagination to go wild and start creating some really cool things. If you can learn to braze using some moderately inexpensive materials, you can really start to make some interesting tools of your own. For example, this lever lock tension tool is made out of a nail, and this 2-in-1 lever lock pick is made out of some knurled knobs, some grub screws, and a little bit of steel tubing. I've personally found tool making to be one of the most enjoyable aspects of my Locksport hobby for myself, and I know that's true for many other pickers. If you have access to some sandpaper, some files, maybe some feeler gauge or wiper blade insert, and optionally some shrink tubing, you can start to do one of the most enjoyable side hobbies in Locksport, and that is of course lockpick making. They don't have to be pretty. This was the first lockpick I ever made by myself, just using some feeler gauge, some shrink tubing, files and sandpaper. Not only is lockpick making incredibly satisfying, but you can start to make tools for very specific purposes. For example, this super long nose pick for picking a super deep keyway. If you're able to get hold of some high yield stainless steels, which are much better for pick making, then of course you can start to make better, stronger picks. If you can't get hold of that, there are some companies that do pre-made pick blanks. And of course, the handle material is entirely up to you. It's amazing what you can choose to make a lockpick handle from and get epic results. The process of making a pick is very satisfying and doesn't involve too many tools or techniques. Maybe some rotary multi-tools, grinding, sanding, filing and gluing. It's a very interesting and involved experience and can produce some really stunning results. You are only limited by your imagination, and it truly is amazing what you can make. These are just some of the lockpicks I've made recently, and this one was even made with some spare RAM that I had lying around. And yeah, it's just such a good hobby. If you haven't created your own lockpicks yet, I would very much recommend you go out there and give this a go. One of the biggest parts of the Locksport scene and community is challenge lock making. For those who aren't familiar with the concept, a challenge lock is just taking a standard commercial lock, swapping out the pins, maybe the springs, maybe even modifying the insides, the core and the Bible, to make a standard commercially available lock trickier or more challenging to pick. Sometimes they are just there for fun and introduce new concepts. Sometimes they're there to really challenge another picker or yourself. And honestly, you can do anything with any lock. Given that you can use any lock type, how you choose to modify it with what pins and springs is entirely up to you. For those who aren't particularly creative, you might want to just try buying sets of commercial security pins and swapping them out of your locks. And for those who have the ability to do so, you can take some 3mm brass rod like this and start to make and create some really epic different shaped security pins to really make those locks extra tricky. There are a few commercially available challenge pin designs out there which I helped create. So these ones are based on chest pins, these ones are Christmas themed, and these ones are all based on munitions. One of the best places to start if you're a beginner challenge lock picker is just using these key and knob cylinders. They're incredibly cheap, especially second hand, can offer lots of different key bittings and are very easy to take apart as well. Clearly, the point of a challenge lock is to send it out to the community, and that's one of the other advantages of taking up challenge lock making is that community spirit, the idea that you're going to make something, send it out into the community, see how other lock pickers approach it. Let them have some fun. You get the enjoyment of seeing other lock pickers be challenged by it. It really is a core part of the Locksport community, and again, it's one of those skills or side hobbies in Locksport that I just would encourage anybody to give a go, even if it's just once. Make yourself a challenge lock, see if you can pick it, send it out, let other people enjoy it too. It really is fantastic. If you have access to a makerspace or machine shop with mills and lathes, maybe some CNC tools and laser cutters, it's amazing what you can start to make as a lock picker. Just for example, here we have some milled pinning trays in wood and aluminium. If you had a metal lathe, you can start to make disc detainer picks. And here we have two prototype tools that I use a laser cutting service to produce. So it really is a bit more of an advanced skill and hobby to get into this kind of more advanced machining, but again, the rewards can be really epic. We talked earlier about simple tool making, and I think one of the natural progressions from that is tool modifications, and that can start simple. For example, taking cheap Chinese disc detainer picks like that and modifying them so that they are more useful in more locks. You see here that I've modified both the picking and tension tip here to work in a much wider range of locks. Here's another example of a simple tool modification. One of these rear disc detainer picks you can buy, modify it so it can actually pick an ABUS Plus lock. A cool tool modification that I would encourage anybody to try is to take something like a selfie stick and make yourself a set of concentric plug followers out of them. It's a really cheap, simple hack, and it will provide you with loads of different sizes of plug follower for all different types of lock. Other popular tool modifications for lock pickers includes modifying things like multi-tools. You can really let your imagination go wild. Here's a concept I had where I converted some of the multi-tools that are available into picks and circlip removers, and I think on this side I had plug followers. It's amazing what you can do. Again, it's only limited by your own imagination. And here's an absolute classic modification, which is using old cheap knives to make lock picks from. Tool modification is definitely one of the more fun and creative aspects of Locksport. You really can take tools which were designed originally for lock picking and make them better, all the way through to using items which were never intended for a Locksport application, like selfie sticks and cutlery, and make something really awesome from it. This is one of the most fun parts of the hobby for me, because I think it's one of the most creative to be able to look at something and see how it can be improved or modified into a new or better thing. It really is quite wonderful, and I love it. We couldn't do a presentation like this without mentioning 3D printing, which is technically two different skill sets. The skill set of 3D printing in itself, and of course doing all of the CAD work so that you can design some amazing tools. It really is revolutionary, not only in lockpicking but many other hobbies, for making small parts, small batch tools, rapid prototypes. I mean, the list is genuinely endless. It just involves a little bit of familiarity with some of the 3D design software, and there's lots of free stuff available. But you can also go online to places like Thingiverse and download or purchase some 3D files, which you can either print yourself or get a 3D printing service to do for you in a range of different materials, from PLA to ABS to even metal. And what you can create in Locksport, again, like a lot of these side hobbies, is only limited by your imagination when you really get going. I myself designed things like a little pinning tray, which is to my own personal taste and specification. You can look that up on Thingiverse, as well as this. They're free, which is a holder for different types of locks and Euro cylinders to rim cylinders to kick cylinders and all that kind of thing. And then there's so many other creators out there. Here's just some stuff from other creators. We've got some front followers in a custom holder. We have disc detainer picks, which are really incredible, and even educational tools which describe how you can pick locks and how they work. Really is just fabulous. I think that 3D printing is now becoming something which more people can access. The costs are coming down lower. There's more resources and tutorials out there for people, and the bank of designs, free designs out there for people to download and try themselves is increasing all of the time. The next thing I want to talk about has an incredible significance within the Locksport community. In fact, so much so that people who do this sometimes do this more than they do lock picking. What am I talking about? Well, of course, I'm talking about key impressioning. For those of you who aren't familiar, key impressioning is where you take some key blanks like this for a lock you don't have a key for, like this, and you try to make a key for it by impressioning the pins or wafers or levers onto the key blank and filing those impressions down until finally you get a working key. I can show you a few clips of a video where I actually take vintage lock which didn't have a key and I create a key for it, which actually added quite a lot of value to that rare lock. Here's a close-up of a key which was impressioned using some files and some grips, and as you can see, it works brilliantly in the lock as intended. As long as you have a lock and a suitable blank, the price of entry to key impressioning is surprisingly low. Some good vice grips like this are a help. So is clearly some files and some sandpaper. If you want to get even more professional about it, you can start to invest in proper impressioning files, which mean that you get better, cleaner cuts on the key with every stroke, and maybe some proper professional impressioning grips like this, which give you much better key purchase, and you're less likely to damage the key when you are impressioning it. Some people even like to use magnifying lamps and magnifying glasses and things so they get a better view on the very small marks that you get on a key when you are impressioning it. And of course, like most hobbies, you can go up and up in price for better and better equipment like light boxes and magnifying light boxes and all those kind of things. In the Locksport scene, some people are able to impression a lock within a matter of seconds, and of course that means there is a really healthy competitive scene out there where people will impression locks in competition, and it really is a fantastic thing to view as well as to try out. So yes, honestly, do try key impressioning. If you have locks which don't have keys, this is a great way to get keys for them, and as I mentioned earlier, you can actually add some value to them. I hope we can all agree that professional cutaway locks are really, really cool, and certainly worthy of any lock picker's collection. But you can also make them. For example, you can take just a simple snapped lock like this, and using nothing but a hacksaw blade and some files, you can make this. In fact, I did make this, and I can show you me just going through the processes of making this on a short clip. It really is a lot of fun. Clearly you can put as much time into it as you want and shine it up and make it look as nice as you like and file it all smooth and all those kind of things. But you really don't have to. They are a really great educational aid, and it's one of those things which, if you've never done, I would recommend you give it a go at least once. If you've got access to the tools and skills required, you can even start to mill out your own cutaways like this. This amazing cutaway was actually done by a hobbyist, not by myself, I have to say, and it just shows what a little bit of skill and the right tools can allow you to do. Honestly, this is one of the, I guess, the harder skills to pick up, but making your own cutaway locks is just so cool. Another super fun side hobby in Locksport is key casting. What do I mean by that? Well, you might have seen spy films where people take a key, they put it in a little box with some clay or modelling clay in there, take an imprint of the key, give the key back, and then go away and make a copy of that key. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's one of those skills which can be used by locksmiths or even pen testers, where they might not have access to a key for very long and want to be able to make a copy of that key. But besides that, genuinely, it's such a fun thing to do, to be melting these low melting point metals and making cast keys. It's just something really relaxing and just really cool about it. Here is a cast key, and you can see that when done properly, they're almost indistinguishable from the real thing, apart from the fact they're a little bit more brittle. If you've got the money, you can actually buy casting kits from various manufacturers, but the price of entry to this hobby is, or at least can be, relatively low. All you need is some modelling clay to be able to take an impression, maybe some talcum powder to make sure that the two halves of your impression of the key don't stick together, some kind of clam case or box which you can modify to put the plasticine in to take a cast, some low melting point metal which you can find all over the internet, something like, I think it's Woods or Fields metal, a way to melt it and something to melt it in, and that's really it. It does take a little bit of skill and practice, but you can actually do dimple keys, lever lock keys, standard pin tumbler keys. The list is really endless. I've even had fun doing coin casting and Lego casting and things like that. It really is a lot of fun as a hobby, and certainly, again, one of those things which, if you've never tried, definitely worth trying a couple of times. It's really good fun. And the last side hobby I'd like to leave you with is one of my personal favourites, and it's something which not a lot of lock pickers actually touch on for various reasons, but I generally get, again, some of the most enjoyment out of the hobby doing this sort of thing, and that is just sort of creative making, whether it be jewellery or other objects, just using lock picking and Locksport related items. So some examples are where I made a silver plated Celtic cross pendant here, literally out of a key that I had and a rotary multi-tool, with offcuts from the resin and rosewood that I used to make this pick. I made this really cute little rosewood and resin heart pendant with a little lock symbol in the middle. From old stripe plates, I make really cool little key rings here. And most recently, I made some lockpick rings out of lockpicks. Literally taking a lockpick like this, bending it, and then using silver solder to braze it all together. And with a little bit of polish, you can get something like this. In fact, all through this video, you might have seen me wear one, which I wear every single day. So there you go, that's my top 10 Locksport hobbies to try beyond lockpicking. That isn't all of the hobbies, it's just my favourite ones. You might have other hobbies and skills that you do in your Locksport hobby that I haven't even mentioned here, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I really hope you enjoyed that, and maybe even feel inspired to try something new or go back to something you haven't done for a while. I really enjoyed putting this presentation together. It just reminded me of all the fun times I've had over the years when I've been doing Locksport and all the wonderful things that I've created, and yeah, it's just been fabulous. Anyway, I hopefully will be taking some of your questions soon over on the Discord server, and I can't wait to see you there.
Hi, everybody. Um, so we're just having a bit of trouble getting Lock Noob in here for the Q&A, but please start posting your questions while we get that taken care of. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Some sort of weird little technical malfunction, but it looks like we new with us now.
I am with you. I'm just trying to readjust everything. Here we go. Sorry for all of that. That'll do.
Okay, so let's get first question from Remapper. The metal strips used to make the lockpicks, were they purchased or recycled from something?
Oh, those are recycled from some laser cutting from a lockpick manufacturer who I had worked with, and they were very kind enough to send me a load of those strips. However, a lot of manufacturers out there like Peterson and I think Law Lock Tools sell offcuts. There are various thicknesses of feeler gauge as well, which you can purchase. So there are definitely places where you can buy that specialized steel.
Right. Vorticon asks if there are any challenges with finding blanks for older locks. I'm assuming that's in relationship to impressioning.
Yes, yeah, there certainly is, especially when you collect locks from around the world. Even the finest key cutting establishments around just won't carry all locks worldwide, so it can be quite a challenge. Certainly, it helps if you're part of the wider community to ask around, see if anybody's got any key blanks. But those vintage or even antique locks, very hard to find blanks for sometimes, for sure.
Okay, let's just see. I'm not seeing any more questions yet, although Johnny Yukov has some suggestions for searching on eBay for things like feeler gauge. So some tool and lock suppliers like Sparrows that cater more to the Locksport community will also sell key blanks, although they're usually the more common ones. Johnny Yukov asks, how many locks would you say you own in total?
I actually know Yukov in real life, so he should know better than many. But do you know, it's a really hard question because I have to store them all the way around the house in various little piles and under beds and things. So I don't know. It's definitely in the hundreds. I'd be terrified it was getting close to 1,000, but it also wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, once a collection really gets started, you start very easily realizing, oh well, I'll just stick these in a box, and there's a bit of space on that shelf over there, or oh, I can fit. Oh, I got another box now. Oh, you know what? There's some space in that cabinet.
Oh, for sure. And I think when you run a YouTube channel as well, you always think, well, I can't get rid of that lock, even though it's rubbish, because I might be able to demonstrate it being a rubbish lock later on. There's always an excuse for keeping hold of an old lock.
Absolutely. It looks like we might have another couple of questions coming in. But while we're waiting for those, or the people that are typing out their questions still to finish up, now you're over in the UK,
I am.
and so there's a lot of variations in not just the brands of locks that you'll see in one country versus another, but
Mm.
also types of locks, the different mechanisms.
Oh, for sure.
Here in the U.S., just about the only time you see like a real lever lock, where it's got more than just one or two levers, is generally on a safe deposit box at a bank.
I see.
Whereas over there, as I understand it, they are quite a bit more common.
Yes, in fact, this is a lever lock. This is a lever lock, despite its appearances, and technically, this is a lever lock as well. So yeah, they are a lot more. They are a lot more common over here for sure. And the range of types of lever lock as well are, as you can see, really varied. Loads of different configurations out here. I guess once we like something, we tend to stick with it. And I do have a little American kick here, just to show that show win.
Okay, John Yukoff again. If you could go back in time and tell yourself one piece of lockpicking related advice, what would it be?
That's a really hard one. I got asked a question similar to that the other day, and the truth is it's really hard to go back and tell yourself to not do something you learned a lesson from doing, if that makes sense. I think it's always good to say, if you buy a nice lock picking set first, a good quality one from a reputable manufacturer, you won't be wasting your money on all this on the cheap stuff, which is harder to use, made of worse materials, won't last as long. But the thing is that I think that I learned a lot from going through, like a lot of people do, which is, do I even want to do the hobby? I'll buy this set because it's got lots of picks in it and it's very cheap. And I think you have to go through some of those experiences to really learn about what's best for you. So it's really hard to go back and think about the things which I would tell myself not to do, or that I would do differently next time, because even when I've wasted money on stuff, I've definitely learned lessons from it and gone back to that stuff later on and found a use for it in my YouTube videos, even if it's to say, look out for buying these sorts of kits. So for me, it's a very hard question to answer. I think that all I can say is that while arguably I have lots of regrets, I can't regret any of them.
Very good. I mean, I suppose there are one or two things, if I had that chance, I'd probably tell myself, you know what? Don't waste your money on that one particular tool. It looks really cool, but it doesn't work, and you're going to be out a couple $100s.
Well,
that's one of the few things I would really say would be an easy one to go back and redo.
I think I've been fortunate, so I never spent huge amounts of money on this on the hobby. Although I do regret getting a cheaply made one of those little snap pick guns, because they're just terrible and you learn nothing from them. But even so, I regret giving it away, because there's been a few times where I've gone, I really wish I could include that in a video, because I just didn't have it.
And Vorticon again has a question. They want to know what's a good first tool to get started with making?
Oh, definitely tension tools, because you can never have enough. I mean, my lockpick kit here, if I just bring it up into, there we go, in shot, you'll see that they've got some there, some down here, and a lot of them I've sort of made myself out of wiper blade insert. I think that if you're going to start making a tool, that's a good place to start. Otherwise, I'd really say don't put off making your own lockpicks. It's such a really fun hobby to get into, and can be as simple as some feeler gauge, file sandpaper, and some shrink tube, and you can go wild with materials. You don't have to hold yourself back. So definitely, if you think that wiper blades are a little bit too easy, and they probably are, I'd definitely say go into pick making. It's a really great hobby to sort of get into, and lots of different skills to learn there.
Very good. So if you don't mind hanging around for just another couple of minutes,
course not.
we'll everyone a just another minute or two to toss some questions your way. But while we're waiting for that, I do just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to do this with us today. And also thank you very much for staying up to do this.
No, it's my
Trying to
pleasure.
coordinate between GMT and Pacific time is not the easiest thing to do.
No, but we're fortunate we have things like Google Calendar to help us out there. So,
And we've got some thanks from the viewers in the chat saying thank you very much for the great talk.
well, thank you for watching. I hope people found it interesting.
Right. And with that, I don't see anything else coming in. So just thank you again very much for doing this, and best of luck with everything. Stay safe.
And you, thank you.